come taste the rainbow. All right, guys, time to make some sauce. So today I'm going to use some marugas, these random red peppers that I have no idea what they are, some Bahamian goats, some Scotch bonnets, and some brain strains. So actually, no, these are, what are these? Scotch brains, not brain strains. Close enough. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and chop these up, and then we're going to add them to a brine mixture. So let me get started on that. All right, gonna take a break to rub my eyes. Wait, no, that's a bad idea. Don't do that. So guys, what I'm doing here is I'm just removing some of the seeds. Just if there's any large masses of these seeds. I don't really want them in the sauce. They don't really add any flavor, they just add some bitterness, and I really don't want them in there, so I try to cut them out as much as possible, but for this batch of sauce I'm going to leave most of them in, except for this big chunk right here. Alright, so we've got everything chopped up, just kind of a rough chop on a lot of these peppers, nothing fancy. Don't exactly have great knife skills here. But what I went ahead and did was I took out a lot of these little seeds, just the main portions of seeds, just because these things are a little bit bitter when you add them to the sauce, and I don't really like them, so I took them out, as well as the stems, because stems don't make good sauce. So next thing we're going to need to do is find a clean jar, which I just so happen to have here. Just a mason jar. And what we're going to do now is go ahead and add the peppers to the jar and add some brine on top of it and then let it sit for 5 days or maybe more. Alright guys, so we've got our scale here. I'm going to turn that on. I've got a mason jar here. It's clean. I'm going to put that on there. It is 733 grams, which really I don't care about because I'm going to go ahead and hit the tare function, which is going to put this back to 0. So now I'm going to go ahead and add the peppers to this, which means I'm just dealing with the weight of the peppers at this point. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add those in. And wow, these things are really burning my eyes at this point. I think those are the marugas. Whew. Kind of glad I decided to wear gloves this time instead of doing this like I usually do. Whew. All right, so almost done adding the peppers. Okay, so we've got roughly a little over 200 grams of peppers, which doesn't really matter because now we're going to add some water to this. So what I'm trying to do here is just cover up the peppers. Okay, probably need just a little bit more water. I'm going to go ahead and try to get this up to 800 grams. Oh, okay, I went a little over, 812. But for the sake of this we're just going to round it down to 800, just because it makes the math easier. So if I've got 800 grams of, peppers and water, basically all I need to do is multiply that by 0.05, and that'll give me the amount of salt that I need to add in there, which will be 40 grams. Yeah, I think my math is right on that. I'm never really good at math, so I'm going to go ahead and check that again, but I think it's 40 grams of salt. And the reason I don't use teaspoons and tablespoons is because obviously salt grains differ depending on the brand you get. So Morton's salt is different than Morton's, sea salt, for example, versus, I don't know, what's another salt brand? Frenchman's salt, I don't know, whatever that is. But, a teaspoon on one may weigh 10 grams, another one may weigh 8 grams. So it's better to use weight and try to figure out what your brine solution needs to be. This way it's a little bit more accurate. And hopefully, you won't get sick from making fermented pepper sauce. So let me go ahead and get the salt, and we'll go ahead and add 40 grams of salt. Okay, so we've got 813 grams in here, so I'm going to add 40 grams of salt, which means this should go up to 853 grams. And I'm going to go a little over because mine started off at 812, so I'm going to just go to, yeah, let's just go there. So that should be a 5% solution right now, which means that this is 5% brine. This brine is 5% salt. So that includes the weight of the peppers and the water. And what we need to do now is I'm just gonna go ahead and cap this, turn off this, and just continue shaking this until the salt dissolves. This is the fun part. Okay. So now all we need to do is don't leave this cap on there because this is going to ferment and it'll probably blow off the lid. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to find a proper cap to put on this. So I went ahead and put a lid on, and basically all I did was I took 2 pieces of saran wrap, or just 1 piece, and folded it over, and then put it on top of the jar, and then screwed down the mason jar lid on top of it. So these are usually the canning jar lids, and the reason I do this is just because as this thing starts to ferment, it's going to let off some gases, and if you put a real lid on here, there's a chance that you could break the bottle. I didn't really want to deal with that, so I just went ahead and used some plastic and screwed it down. So this way, in case the gases start, really building up, they'll pop the plastic before anything bad happens. So that's just my take on it. You can use a regular lid if you want. I would just suggest that you open it up every day, or every other day maybe, just to make sure that the glass doesn't break. And I'm going to go ahead and put this into a dark cabinet right now and let it sit there for a couple days, maybe 5 days. We'll make it maybe 10 days. We'll give it 10 days and we'll see what comes out of this. So I'm going to go put it in a dark cabinet, and hopefully the fermenting process will start by then. We'll take it out after that, and this water will get all nice and cloudy and hopefully fizzy, and hopefully there won't be any mold on top of it. So we'll check back in a couple days and see how this turns out. Okay, let's get to it. Okay, so it's been about 10 days. Peppers have been fermenting for about that time. As you see, the water's gotten kind of cloudy, and if I shake this, you'll see that there's some little fine bubbles coming up. That's the fermentation process. So we're going to go ahead and drain this and go ahead and start grinding up the hot sauce. Whew, that still smells kind of funky. Funky in a good way. Not like bad, just kind of like yogurt, I guess is the best way to describe it. Like basically just like yogurt. And peppers. Yogurt and peppers. I don't know if that's a good mix or not, but we're going to go ahead and try this. Alright, we're going to go ahead and drain these out. Get all those peppers out. And we're not going to throw away the brine. We're just going to keep that. Drain this off. And then let me go ahead and get this into a blender or NutriBullet or something. Alright, so I've got the peppers drained out and they're in this little NutriBullet, which I'm going to use to blend them up. I'm also going to add some apple cider vinegar and about a tablespoon of turbinado sugar, which is basically just a coarser grind brown sugar. I like this more than brown sugar, so I'm going to go ahead and add that in. That's about a tablespoon. Then I'm going to go ahead and add a 1/4 cup of apple cider vinegar. I like this brand, which is Bragg's, or just Bragg. It's pretty good. And then to this, I'm going to add about, let's say about 2 tablespoons of this brine water that the peppers were in. We can always add more afterwards. Let's go with 3, maybe. All right, so we'll go ahead and blend this up and see how it turns out. That is a good looking color. It's like nuclear orange. Let's go ahead and see how this tastes. All right, got a clean spoon. I'm gonna go ahead and just give this a little taste. It's really good. It's like kind of acidic and tangy, but it's really hot too. Wow. Probably need to add a little bit more sugar in there to calm that down a bit. Wow. But yeah, this is pretty good sauce. I'm gonna go ahead and add another little tablespoon of sugar, blend this up, and then we'll bottle it. Okay, so actually what I decided to do was add a half teaspoon of garlic powder, and then another teaspoon of the carbonado sugar. Get in there. All right, we'll go ahead and blend this up and give it another shot. That is perfect. All right, that's the key. A little bit of garlic, a little bit more sugar, and it kind of rounds it out real nicely. So we'll go ahead and bottle this. All right, got these little woozy bottles off Amazon. At least I think that's what they're called. Just add a funnel and go ahead and pour that in. And we'll leave some headspace. And we'll do the same for the second bottle. I don't think I'll get a full bottle out of this one, but nope. That's okay. It won't last long. Alright, so cool. There we go. Homemade hot sauce. Homemade fermented hot sauce. Awesome. So you can go ahead and just add one of these little lids on top, which allows you to just kind of dole it out. Or you can just leave it open and pour it out, kind of like ketchup. But I don't think I'd recommend doing that because this stuff's actually pretty hot. My mouth's actually a little bit on fire. All right, guys. So hope you enjoyed this. You know, there's fermented hot sauce. You can obviously add whatever you want to this. You can add, you know, anything from apples, fruit, blend it in there. You know, just kind of play with it as much. You know, you can play with your own recipe as much as you want. I've tried it with raisins before. It makes a really nice sauce. I've seen people use apples. I've seen people use like pineapple, mangoes, whatever you want. But basically, this is the idea behind it. Fermenting peppers is pretty easy. Just go ahead and use a 5% brine, and it should be fairly safe. And it gives it a nice little tangy flavor. And whatever you do, if you store these outside, make sure that you store the caps on really loosely because, again, they're still fermenting, so they're still letting off gas. I would recommend putting these in the fridge, and that should slow down the fermentation process, but they're still technically alive. All right, guys, well, that's pretty much it. So hope you enjoyed this. Like or subscribe, and have a good one.